Good afternoon. I'm Daniel Miller and this is Destiny Academy. A warm welcome to all of our friends, fans, community members, participants and viewers worldwide watching the stream on a variety of different platforms. Thank you for joining us and thank you for being our valued and very dedicated community members. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for watching our streams during this week, the first two streams of our new setup here on the channel, Destiny Academy that is. Also thank you for the feedback received for our beta and all the technical tests that I was conducting for a few weeks, in fact, in order to make sure that the stream and everything that's been imported to the channel would be as good as it should. So thank you for that, and I'll have lots more from our community a bit later. So first of all, I want to tell you we are still experiencing a massive heat here in the London suburbs, and it's extremely hot and it's very, very difficult to do anything during the day. I don't remember in recent memory so early in June having that sort of tropical heat hitting this part of the country, particularly in the area where I live. So, you know, it's been very, very difficult to do anything, and thankfully the temperatures dropped last night, so it wasn't any more 20 plus for us to attempt to sleep, but it was about 12 or 13 degrees of Celsius, and that made it much easier for me to have a well-deserved rest. And very difficult to sleep before, you know, 1 o'clock in the morning or so, before that time it's still very hot, and I've gone out for a nice stroll after my regular daily swim, and you know, it was pleasant compared to the last few days. So in fact, doing the stroll felt almost like walking in plain sunshine. So really it was, you know, bizarre weather conditions. And I think, coming back to what we really talk about here on the channel frequently, we all have got to be aware of something which is incredibly important, not just for us individually, but for the humanity on whole. The temperature that's rising constantly in various parts of the world, what we observed certainly during the last decade to be very, very significant, is the consequence of our human endeavour. As we've heard, since the Industrial Revolution at the beginning of the 19th century, the temperatures were rising, and we had gone up and up. And I think, considering the new technology that is being presently used, don't forget computers, laptops and all the other gadgets and accessories that we use, they really are first of all producing a lot of heat. Secondly, they use a lot of energy. So all of that is contributing to the overall effect of warming. And then don't forget, in order to deliver such services like online gaming and cloud services and anything to do with Google, you will need to be having huge facilities which are storing that data. And as you know, when you are operating day and night on some of these devices, they overheat. So just think about it. I don't even know where these hubs are, where they keep all the computers with the data, but I believe they're in sort of very, very cold parts of the world, and they all create, you know, extra heat, and they're contributing towards that global warming. Think about all the planes that keep flying every day overhead. In the area where I live, we have one of the major London airports nearby, so at night I can hear the planes coming every 25 seconds. Every 25 seconds there's a plane above us that is going in and indeed contributing to the global warming. So I think unless we take serious steps in terms of reducing the amount of energy that is being constantly released, we are going to be having serious problems, because, you know, Earth could end up like Mars without any water. Water is dependent on certain physical, biological conditions in order to recharge itself, to be, present at the planet enabling life. Without water, there's no life as we know it. It may be that there is life elsewhere in other galaxies that operates under some very different auspices, but we don't know this here on Earth. We know that life on Earth is dependent on water and is dependent on air, and obviously water and air are connected. So, it's been quite breathless one here, and I've got to say, doing the streams during the last few days had made it extremely hot in the room where I am. And I have a very large TV, which is 60-inch TV, and it's Sony Bravia, which also massively overheats the property, and then all the other things on. So, it's a bit like, I felt a bit like walking, not walking, but doing something on the beach. No sunshine, but it's extremely hot. So, one way or the other, you have to bear with me if I start mincing my words, or if I come up with, if my brain doesn't really work 100%, and if I notice it, indeed I'll have some water, have a break, and recharge. But if you notice it, if I start making, certain errors by the way I'm describing things, then please bring it to my attention, because sometimes I might not be even aware of it. Right, back to the gaming world. We've had another big event yesterday, which actually was, I guess, coming towards the end of Summer Games Festival. And they were discussing it yesterday actually on IGN. Why do they call it Summer Game Festival? I think Summer Games Festival, no plural, being as particular as that on the title. And that was really run by the Xbox team. They've had relatively few conversations and introductions during the major showcase event, which in fact was really streamlining everything towards the big Vidoc produced by Bethesda, and they indeed produced and gave us a fantastic documentary on all that is to follow with the game in September. So the extended showcase was just basically providing us a lot more with guests and participants to tell us about the games we watched, seen, the ones that are coming our way, and certainly that was very, very illuminating. I guess the biggest guest of the extended showcase was Keanu Reeves. You'll know him obviously from many different films. The younger viewers will remember him from John Wick serial, but otherwise we've seen him over the years in many different films. They include Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, Gus Van Sant's My Private Idaho, Catherine Bigelow's Point Break. The list just goes on and on. He's been in a very, very large number of films. It's interesting that as he progressed in age, he became more associated with action films, a bit like Tom Cruise to a degree, and he had Matrix, I forgot to mention, which obviously had placed him at the pedestal of action hero, but he had been participating in some of these films a lot more in recent years, certainly the last 10 years, and that is probably the reason as to why he got selected for Cyberpunk. And you will recall a few years back when he appeared at the Video Game Award to introduce the game before its launch, it was like a sensational appearance. He said that, comparing all the red carpet events that he attended in his life, that experience was the best of all. He said the energy, the vibe, the acceptance, the excitement coming from the crowd, which was very, very large, was out of this world. And I agree, because the excitement and the energy that many fans feel about the new games, and then the potential for future communication with other gamers and connectivity, is something we've never had in history. And I think, just like Sarah Bond said, one of the main Xbox executives during their first presentation, and really sort of stayed with me. She said, video gaming is the most powerful form of communication, interactive communication of today. And that's true, because all of that the games facilitate is just truly astonishing. From being able to experience the fantasy world through which you recognize the elements of your own reality, to mutual connectivity between yourself and other gamers, excuse me, to what we do here, which is connecting to charitable causes and basically discussing very important issues which affect not just individuals but the humanity overall, is incredible. And it operates 24/7. People can pop in and join the Elder Scrolls or Destiny community at any time, make new friends, create new bonds, discuss things which really are on their mind, be it individual, be it gaming industry related, or in fact linked to anything else which is present in that person's community. It's opening up almost an infinite number of opportunities and possibilities for new connections and for the change. I think that's really critical. So when he described that buzz, that energy, that excitement, well, that's exactly it. Because, you know, having a game like Cyberpunk that's been anticipated for more than 10 years is phenomenal, and that indeed is going to be giving him a huge boost in terms of what kinds of projects he will be involved with in the future. Obviously, the projects that will have to have that degree of interactivity, and then altogether a massive appreciation for the works that he's done in the past, obviously bringing him to that degree of fame and to the position where he is one of the first big superstars to be featuring in a major video game that has so many followers, and obviously with that huge anticipation. So that was incredible. And he talked yesterday quite a bit about the game and his career, and I have to say that it was peculiar because he kind of could not de-roll, and he said that himself in the interview. You know, he was still Johnny when he talked to the presenter, and he said it was really difficult to just be himself, and he came across as Johnny from the game. Maybe this was an act, I don't know, maybe they're prepared for that, maybe it was just him, hard to tell. But as you know, he really fits in perfectly, and they did give us a bit more of description on the new map and the new section that we are going to be exploring as we enter Cyberpunk, and I think that's really very exciting. It did remind me a bit of the underworld that I experienced in Outriders. I don't know whether you played the game, but Outriders are accessible on both streaming platforms of Sony and Microsoft, so make sure you go and play the game. It does have the elements of Cyberpunk in certain sections, with some characters and with the environment of that market, which is not as huge as the one in Cyberpunk, but still, it does sort of have some, it bears some resemblance, does have similarities, and generally, I'm quite curious about the changes, because they indicated that the new DLC will in fact be introducing a different kind of endgame. So that was interesting, and I wonder how this is going to work. Also, you know that there are lots of characters and the map is vast in Cyberpunk, so I'm kind of looking forward to see how everything will develop, because Reeves indicated that there are some really nasty characters in the market, and they will be very involved with Johnny, very connected to the story, and that is altogether very exciting. You know that Cyberpunk had a very unsuccessful launch initially, and they spent a lot of time and effort and money and everything in order to enhance its capabilities, and I think the game is progressing down the route of being a major classic. And I think that's really important for all the gamers worldwide to realize that sometimes if the games have an unsuccessful launch or there's a problem at the beginning, there has to be patience and time, I guess, given to the developers to do something about it. And as you know, CD Red is a major new studio that is joining of the biggest heavyweights. So it's the first, I mean, obviously the Witcher trilogy, but this was the project that should have really elevated them to, you know, the level of Bethesda's and Bioshocks of this world, and that didn't really materialize quite. But they spent, as I said, a lot of effort in trying to polish the game and make it as good as it should have been at the beginning, like as the game was intended. And I think they succeeded. I mean, I played the game a bit. I've not actually gone through it in full. I played a couple of trials, and I was really astonished by the immersive nature of the city. And actually, I had a lot to do. But to be fair, I did not play the game right at the start. I've had some experiences with bad launches in recent years. I'll name just a few, and they will obviously stand out. Number one, Fallout 76, major problems everywhere, the technical issues and everything else. And also the game at the launch felt so disjointed between the usual Fallout story, the in-game mechanics, and the multiplayer. It just seemed really bizarre. But the game had been improved. It is a very good game with lots of things to do, and they're constantly working on it. Obviously, Bethesda were not going to be turning their back on the franchise, the series, the Fallout series that produced phenomenal games in the past, which have obviously very many dedicated community members and followers. So it was obvious that they'll need probably extra 18 months to get it sorted. But the game is constantly evolving, so it's been brought to the level where you can say, it is going to be thriving in the future. don't think it's still matching the previous Fallout games from what I experienced. I've not played it extensively because there were some issues in there that I guess affected my gameplay. And obviously, being a Destiny streamer, I was a similar sort of game with a vast universe to explore with lots of tasks every single week. And obviously, they included the similar concept with seasonal pass and extra DLCs and seasonal content and many tasks. So, it's impossible to be actually involved with 2 or 3 of these games at the same time if you're a streamer and if you are indeed involved with major issues from the gaming industry. So obviously I've got it on my back burner and I will be revisiting. They also introduced the new DLC too, actually. They introduced the new DLC that'll come things in a couple of days, and then there is another one that will be arriving in the new all of Atlantic City, I think it's called, the one that we'll be all looking forward to, with a different map and different characters and everything else. It's a major expansion. Coming back to then the other one that launched unsuccessfully, and I was fully involved with it with promotion here on my channel, was Anthem. And Anthem, I anticipated also for many years, thought it was going to be like a merger of Destiny and Mass Effect. Maybe Mass Effect Andromeda more than any other, and it just backfired completely. The game eventually was playable, and certainly with a very good selection of fighting sequences, events, and different types of activities, but I think it didn't really have the same interactive, massive open world flavor, or the degree of high quality dialogue and in-depth portrayal of characters as we already had experienced that in quite a variety of the games. Mass Effect obviously being the first one, then you have the Knights of the Old Republic, the original Star Wars, still regarded as one of the best, if not Empire, Neverwinter, etc. The list just goes on, and it just seemed like really a game that was released too early, and also technically performed really badly at the beginning. It's the first game I played on day one that had serious problems with rubber banding. I don't remember doing any game, maybe on betas or maybe on alphas, but I do not remember playing any game at all as the game was launched that will actually have that degree of difficulty. They explained as to why this was, something to do with the server, something to do with multiplayer, and something to do with the engine, but all of that should have been really considered well in advance, because obviously having a game like Cyberpunk, for instance, where people anticipated incredible things for many years, because don't forget Anthem was being talked about, it was a game kept under wraps. People speculated whether this was going to be Mass Effect with the full multiplayer facility or something, and when it came out it just obviously presented as a separate game with 4 characters. We can just speculate as to why this was. At the end of the day, I also wondered sometimes as to why we couldn't have 3 people playing the characters in Mass Effect separately, the trio, the squad which you're selecting, and have that choice between one and the other, to have it through PvE or indeed have other multiplayer guys coming in. But they explained that the tech at the time when they were developing Mass Effect was not as developed as it is today, and there were many logistical, practical and technical issues that were indeed coming up as obstacles, and therefore they resorted to what we'd had, right? Because I remember playing Mass Effect 2 and they had the movement of the characters through Kinect, so it was obviously a step forward, and Anthem was to have a squad of 4. So these were the characters that had completely different abilities, they had different skills tree, and the idea was to get them together in order to fight. And it was a fantastic idea, but they should have spent maybe 2 or 3 more years working on the story and then tying in the concept with the narrative, and then the game. Also, what did upset me, and this was like a serious upset, was the fact that once everything backfired, they decided to reorg and reallocated their resources to other biggies, to other 2 heavyweights, and that's the new installment in Dragon Age and Mass Effect series. So it meant, well, they realized the game just went beyond redemption and required a lot more investment, which indeed would make it workable and playable. And it's possible in the distant future they'll rework the game and reoffer it, and then it will be amazing. I think they realized the limitations of the tech compared to the intention, that something just seriously went wrong within the whole concept, and they thought this was beyond retrieval at that time. What did really upset me was they offered, first of all, a special edition which had some sort of extras, and they were indicating that these people who bought the special edition will be also getting an early preview of Cataclysms. So Cataclysms are similar to what we have here in Destiny as raids, and we've had some indication of Cataclysms, but they've never been properly developed, and they never worked on them, as they should. Eventually, everything was just downsized and left as it was. To be fair, one of the biggest problems I experienced in Anthem was its map. So the map never worked properly, and you will know from Mass Effect how essential was for the map to work properly because of the multitude of activities, characters, and tasks that you were facing every single time you came back to the base. Or indeed, if you were just at any of the planets, you would still be given you tasks, and they all would pop up on the map, so you can actually see what tasks you had there to finish. You knew basically what characters were there to be and in Anthem you couldn't see any of this. In fact, the map still doesn't work. You can't even swing from one part of the map to the other. I find that astonishing. We're talking about $300 million project, and it's just really crazy that they've not spent time on doing some of those bare essentials. I've no idea why that is, because quite frankly, as a dedicated veteran of games, I've played the vast majority of the last 20 years. The beauty of the engagement with the characters and with the narrative is just by exploring and then finding the new people who are unlocking separate or new quests. And there are so many characters in Anthem who had never been unlocked by the majority of the players because they were invisible. They couldn't actually find them unless they literally spent time walking around and looking for them. There were no indications on the map elsewhere that these people are obviously there for you to be interacting with, and therefore the content seemed very slim. So I've read some of the reviews who said, well, we'll finish the campaign in about 12 hours. That for me was a gross over exaggeration, or it just indicated that the problem with the map and the problem in accessing the NPCs, non-playable characters, was very, very considerable for them, because they didn't have time to be just walking and looking for them if there was no indication of the map where these characters actually were. So they said they finished the game in about 12-13 hours, and I spent 140 hours. 140 hours on Anthem, and I completed everything on one character. So I enjoyed the battle sequences, and eventually they polished the problems. The technical problems were more or less eradicated. The missions were very exciting, and the overall combat was probably one of the best ever played in a sci-fi game. The characters were beautifully designed. There were lots of enemies. The way you're using your skills, also the way you're blending in with other characters, was very, very good. But just very, very disjointed. And also, the greatest upset for me was that they decided to drop the project. So, it's a major project. They talked about it for 10 years, and then suddenly it's dropped. And it's being left. Maybe one day they'll come back to it. Maybe not. Disappointing. And then we had, obviously, Cyberpunk, and we had Redfall in recent times. Cyberpunk plagued by the difficulties on the technical side of things. Very similar to Anthem, in fact. Released it too early. They've not worked on cross-platform access properly. The code apparently was primarily designed for PCs, because CD Red always released the games on PCs first, and you couldn't play it on PlayStation. It was just unplayable. It was so bad that they decided not to be selling it to the store. They pulled it, and that itself was just absolutely ridiculous. What we are seeing again is huge anticipation about certain games, and I guess there is also huge pressure being applied to the developers in order to deliver as early as possible for the investment to be brought back as early as possible. There are certainly these traps for everyone, and most importantly for people who have been investing, because I think Cyberpunk had a very, very rocky launch, but everyone knew that they will not allow the game to fail a huge amount, and they worked on it day and night, and the game indeed began to work properly, and it has huge number of followers, and I have on my Twitter quite a number of those who are constantly every day taking photographs of virtual photographs of various characters. There are many who are doing cosplay, and it's just like a game that will indeed become both a classic and legendary in no time. So coming back to what I said earlier, I think all of us have got to be a bit more patient, but on the other hand, the developers got to be a bit careful with their pricing strategies, because if they are giving us the games that are indeed so expensive, like for instance Diablo now is costing $100 or £100, the Ultimate Edition, and people always go for the best edition because of extra content, you get extra cosmetics, and there's treasure packs and whatever you get, and always very, very popular from that perspective. It's very important for them to realize they've certainly paid significant revenue. I mean, £100 today in Britain is a huge amount of money on the personal budget, and anyone buying Diablo will not be able to buy Star Wars Outlaws and Starfield, and then some of the other games that we've seen all at the same time, because it's too expensive. We have the benefit of accessing some of them on the Game Pass day one, which obviously is very, very good, and that's making it easier for us to be a bit selective when deciding what type of game we are going to be actually purchasing, instead of just doing it through the streaming platform. But still, I think the mismatch, the short circuit, the point of contention between the developers and the gaming community is in this area. It's only paid $100 to play Anthem day one, have early access, play closed beta and closed demo before anyone else, and that fails. They're obviously very, very aggrieved, and they're very begrudged and very angry, and that is to be expected. So there needs to be a lot more thought given to the strategy on how the games are to be given to to the gaming community, if we know that the games perhaps are not going to be ready. The shareholders, the investors, they want the games always to be released on a specific date, but they're underestimating the impact of these technical issues. You would assume that a game that is a multiplayer will have many more difficulties compared to the single player game, but as we've seen the other day, Todd Howard said we are doing a single player game, there's no any aspects of multiplayer in it, and it's massive. We brought in this huge galaxy, there's lots of activities, there's plenty of things to do, and he did say that they had to be downsizing the ambitions of the plan, most notably that they wanted it to be 4K 60 FPS, and they downgraded it to 30 FPS at present. I want to stress that that is at present. This may well be increased in the future, but they do not want to have any minor issues affecting the technical capabilities of that game on launch, because they've seen the problems that we experienced with Fallout 76, and they don't want that with a new game that's opening up the saga for the future. The most complex, the most interesting, the biggest, and the most sophisticated video game that they have ever produced. And they were preparing it. I mean, he was already talking about this game in 1999, so we're talking about 24, 25 years of development, step by step. And he did say in that presentation that the tech actually was just about reaching the level during the last couple of years, but they felt it was the right time. They worked on it for quite some time, and obviously they've gone through different steps of introducing changes. And so, it is basically just the way it is. We need to be a bit more patient. We have to have these expectations which are not as massive, but that's difficult. If you watched all the presentations like myself during the game festival, there's just so many great games. I mean, one looks better than another, but talk about 25, 30 games which you want to be playing more or less straight away. In addition to that, Xbox did have their ID showcase as well, which is dedicated to the indie developers. So very many different indie developers offering many interesting titles that are not massive in volume, but they're equally interesting. And so if you are on the Game Pass, make sure that anytime any new titles come in, access them on the cloud. You don't have to download, just access them, have a look, play the game a bit, get a flavor of it, ping some few words to the developers, say something to them, which obviously will be greatly appreciated. because Xbox are helping the guys who have got, I wouldn't say no money, but people who haven't got the marketing capabilities for these titles to become so well known around the world. And obviously being on the Game Pass just gives them an instant access to hundreds of millions of people worldwide, and that is obviously a huge benefit. Whether people want to play all these games is another matter. And you will see that a bit like with cinema releases, everyone swings towards the heavyweights. But as we go on, as we get more and more people involved in video gaming every single day, we're also observing a surge amongst those who are a bit more interested in the whole process of how the video games are made. You know, a bit like people who were called in the past film buffs. In here we got video game buffs, right? People who actually love them, and they're not attached just to one game, they're just exploring what's happening in the industry. They watch the showcase events, they go to conventions, and the number of those people is significantly growing. So there are going to be very many. You know, if you're talking about 100 million, that's very many people. They're like 1% who are interested in a particular game. Still, that 1% will be given a very large exposure to a title otherwise would be completely obscure. So make sure you play some of these, and make sure that you are bringing a few words of your thoughts to the developers and publishers, because obviously they will greatly appreciate it, and I really very much encourage you to do that, not just with the indie games on the Game Pass, but also with, for instance, alphas and betas. You did see that the showcase event had been giving us the opportunity to engage with quite a few betas and demos. So, you know, just download or subscribe to one of the websites telling you when the betas are up and running, because betas are one of the best ways in which you are going to be one of the influencers in terms of how the game is going to be eventually produced and released. And it's extremely important that you realize that you are an active participant. You may think, well, I'm just dropping the ocean, I'm just like one person, and you know, what I do is really not very significant. Who's going to read my comments because all the other people will be writing? No, that's completely wrong way of looking at it. If you go to Twitter or Reddit in particular, they have their loyal, dedicated threads that are being moderated by the developer. And when you write, whatever you write in there, every single message is being looked at and read. Reddit doesn't have that many contributors compared to Twitter, for instance, and people write at length. There's no restriction in what you can be providing as feedback, and that's very important, because if you are doing beta or alpha of a particular game, you can tell the developer what works and, most importantly, what doesn't work, what you like, most importantly, what you didn't like. Make sure you write, make sure you provide your thoughts and views, because guess what, in the past you did not have that opportunity. The game was made come what may, and as we've seen now with Bungie, we've seen that with Activision, we've seen that with well, quite a number of other companies. Naughty Dog, for instance, very receptive of the comments coming from their community. You know, they will be reading the messages, they will be tailoring the game accordingly, and that is extremely important, because if there are things you really dislike, like for instance the way you collect loot, the way the narrative flows, the way certain characters are, or just the, you know, mechanics of the gameplay, there's something you really do not like, make sure they can hear it early. You will recall that with Apex and Respawn, there was a serious problem initially with the inventory being too fiddly, and a lot of people complained that I need to collect and then I need to be doing things manually. So everything became easy, automated, and that all, you know, it was the community members obviously playing the game, loving it, and providing these comments in order to enhance it. Respawn obviously took them on board and applied the changes, and the game is as polished as it can be today. Also, much improved graphics, no technical glitches. You know, the list just goes on and on when it comes to the improvements. I mean, I played the game from day one, and interestingly, it was trailing that disastrous launch of Anthem. It was all coming from EA, because EA is the publisher, and obviously Respawn had got nothing to do with BioWare, but you know, it was just interesting that they failed with Anthem, and then one day after that disastrous launch, you had Respawn, I should say Electronic Arts, throwing in Apex and making sure that the whole world was talking about this game that's never been mentioned anywhere. So it literally sprung out of woodwork. No one's ever heard anything about Apex, and here it was. Obviously very similar in some ways to Titanfall, and very highly playable, with the characters resembling some of the chaps from Overwatch. So very, very cleverly built, constructed game, and with small maps. They're very exciting and very feisty, and the humour of the characters and the way they were, which resembled graphic novels, was extremely popular straight away. But what's important is that there were many issues, many problems with the game that in fact were noticed. They were affecting the gameplay, like for instance you didn't get your scores right, or you were crashing, or there was the game would freeze, or it was very choppy and laggy, etc, etc. And all these things were being fed back to Respawn, and they worked on it, and they made it into a very, very good game. I think Apex as a shooter, correct me if I'm mistaken, is probably the most commonly played shooting game today. Warzone is obviously extremely popular, PUBG is very popular, but Apex, it's a different sort of gamer. You have people gravitating towards it from Battlefield, from Destiny, from PUBG, from Warzone. So it's quite a variety of different types of gamers who actually find it very relaxing. Unlike some of the other games, like PUBG in particular, which is quite intense. Obviously it's merciless because you got to survive, and you don't have a second chance if you're being hit. And that's not the case in Apex. And also it's the humour. It's humour that carries the game. Anyway, I sort of digressed a bit. I talked about all these other things a bit, and so I want to tell you a bit more about the showcase yesterday. And that showcase was dedicated to all the games that we already have seen and heard about on Sunday. So let me tell you, the game I played quite a bit. Where is it now? High on Life, right? High on Life is a very, very funny game, and it does look like something out of a graphic novel. You have guns that talk. You have a very weird, very sort of sci-fi survival style environment, which also is hilariously funny. So it's a bit like walking into a cartoon animated feature where everything is greatly enjoyable either to play or to watch, and lots of funny dialogues. I really very highly recommend it to everyone. It is on the Game Pass free of charge, and it's funny because I actually tried the game several times when the game launched, and it starts with a very retro type of introduction, and I kept playing it, and actually it's a game within a game, and I thought, hang on a minute, there's got to be some sort of fault on the server. This is not the game I want to be playing, because it does start out as the retro game from the 80s, the old PC pre 3.1 Windows types of games, very pixelated, and so you play that a bit, and then later you enter the actual game. So really, really, definitely a very, very interesting and very exciting and very humorous. So they indicated that they are offering a new DLC called High on Life, which in fact was bordering on horror. I think it was significantly different to what we've seen so far, and that itself is something I'm highly excited about. I want to see what the DLC is going to be like. So it's coming in shortly after the release. Well, the game's been around for a few months, and this is going to be definitely one of my highlights of the showcase. Then we've seen that the first Descendant crossplay beta is coming out in August, and we are really very excited about this. We are looking forward to see all the characters. I've got to say that one of the main people in the development team, I'm not sure, but he was the director, or I didn't actually catch the details. He was introducing it. It's a Japanese-made game, and he presented these incredibly beautiful, fully customizable characters. And these characters I thought were really so incredibly similar to the customization of what we've seen in Black Desert. And I really like the customization, like the characters, and the way they came across, like properly Japanese with the outfits, and they're very similar to what you have in Japanese animated films. So for anyone who is familiar with the industry, they would have come across quite a number of those both shorts and features where you have similar sorts of characters, and it's amazing how they're kind of merging the two worlds together. And all of these characters are definitely going to be involved in that fierce PvP. And as I said, the game is coming out in August. So it's called The First Descendant, and it is going to be free-to-play co-op shooter. I guess they will be having a system similar to Apex, which will make it highly interactive and free to play, but you will have to be you will have the option of buying lots of cosmetics. And considering the customization, there is going to be a fantastic scope for revenue making in there, because there are loads of different outfits and loads of things which you can do to these characters. And curious, I want to see what the game is going to be like. So remember, the beta is coming in August. It is cross-play, so people can come in from any platform, and it's free to play. So just make sure you preload and crack on when the game comes. The beta dates are August the 22nd to August the 28th. Certainly very interesting, and recommended to everyone. I was quite excited about what I've seen. Then we had yet again another game I really liked, released I think it was early this year, or was it last year? The time flies, so correct me if I'm mistaken on the dates. Hi-Fi Rush, a very popular game across many gamers on various platforms, and I played it on day one. It's a very, very funny game with a lot of music and guitars which are included in. And they are also presenting a new section. I'm not sure whether it's a DLC or just a separate section of the game called Arcade Challenge. So arcade will be death matches basically, and you'll be fighting it out. So that's coming out on July the 5th, looking really very, very good. Then you have loads of games coming in through just bear with me. Loads of games coming in through the independent developers. They talked about them in a separate section of the presentation. So there was another Crab's Treasure. There was Tectonica, Sea of Stars, Harold Halibut, Galactica Care, Neon White, Minikos Night Market, Bookwalker, and there's many of these, and all of them, literally every one of them, is going to be released on day one. So through the Game Pass, and day one on Game Pass, you'll be able to access every one of these. So if you're a fan of indie games, definitely make sure that you pencil in all the dates, you keep them in your diary, and crack on as they come out, and you will be then also able to preload some of them. The games are not massive in size. Even on Xbox Series S, you can download maybe 10-15 of them. They will not occupy a lot of space, and they're really a true joy to play. I've not spent much time talking about the indie developers. We'll have a session later in a week that is going to be dedicated just to that. So we'll talk about the indies and what the Xbox does, and we go through the presentations, because there were several presentations. The big one trailing the original. Was it Sunday night? No, it wasn't. It was the opening night with Jeff Keighley, and then it was dedicated to ID, which is the Independence at Xbox, and then there was another one yesterday. So other things, they introduced obviously Phantom Liberty, Cyberpunk 2077, told you all about it already. Lamplighters League does have October the 3rd date, and that game also looked very interesting. Looked to me like a strategy game, and very beautiful graphics, very intriguing story. It seemed a bit like something out of Grim Fandango, and really curious to see what the game is going to be like. Not heard much about it. There was a trailer, and I watched it also separately, part of some other presentation also associated with the Weekend Festival, and it is going to be released on October the 3rd, also day one release on the Game Pass. So we had also Carrie Patel. She is the director of Avowed. Avowed had caused, I guess, some controversy because people complaining about the visuals, or they had some assumptions about its narrative, and we have to see basically how all of that will come out. But she talked at length about everything, and she compared the game size to Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic and The Outer Worlds. So if you like these two games, and I actually absolutely love both the games, incredible. Obviously, the Knights of the Old Republic 2 were done by Obsidian, as well as The Outer Worlds, also done by the same developer. They are certainly indicating that the game will be very much in sync with all the big releases and everything else that indeed was given to us by the developer in the past. The Outer Worlds, somebody mentioned, I think yesterday I watched I watched the IGN presentation, doing like a review of Summer Game Fest, and they talked about the presentation, the showcase event. And I thought there was one character in there who indicated that the Outer Worlds was just quite small. How on earth can you say it was small? It's an enormous game. I mean, you played for months and months and months. I mean, there's so many different characters, and obviously it does combine the elements of No Man's Land. What's called the not No Man's Land. Ah, what is the game called now? It's just gone. You see, that's the heat. That's the heat doing to all of us. Anyway, we've had the elements of other space operas, and obviously with the Fallout structure, where the characters are, I guess you talk to them in a very similar fashion. You come to them, they come into close up. The dialogue titles come up, and then you ask all the questions. The only difference is that in Fallout, you don't have that many options in the dialogue, connecting with the characters according to your, I guess, approach and your decision making. And also there are many characters in the Outer Worlds compared to what we had in Fallout. But then don't forget, Obsidian worked on Fallout New Vegas, which indeed is still one of the most popular installments of the series, and I thought it was just a perfect blend. I love the game. Still haven't finished it. I played already for months and months and months, and it's a game that you kind of constantly play section by section. New planets, new characters, new locations, new tasks. And the difference between Fallout and the Outer Worlds is that the Outer Worlds has humor, which I think is spontaneous and funny, and it wasn't really as political and as dry as the one in the original Fallout series. So Fallout 1, 2, 3 in particular, I guess, had more of that, as the third installment was a bit more interactive. It was a next-gen game at the time in the noughties, and anyway, just rambling on about Obsidian, which is obviously one of my favorite developers, and very excited about the game and also what Kari Patel said. Then we've seen some clips from Tileborn. Tileborn was very good as well. I think I'm quite excited and quite curious to see how this is going to be, because it looked like a survival game. You're fighting for the survival of humanity. Not sure how this would really work within that environment. We'll see. Then they talked about Blue Moon update, and that's Fallout 76, which I just mentioned earlier. Also, they talked about Atlantic City expansion, so that is going to be hotly anticipated because it's opening up new maps and new characters and everything. Looked good, so I'm curious. We need to try it out. Also, think if you're on Xbox, the beauty of Fallout 76 and Elder Scrolls Online is that you don't have to be that bothered with the story. So, I guess similar to what you have in Destiny, although Bungie had been making it more and more kind of tied into the narrative, certainly in recent years. But in any case, when you come in, you don't have to sort of start from the very beginning. You can just join in, do some events, get to know some characters, make yourself at home with the environment, and then explore the world that before you. So, that's really what Fallout 76 is about. A very different game compared to the other Fallout installments in the series, and do not have the same sort of anticipation. So if you play the other standalone games, it's just a different world. It provides you with different opportunities, to enjoy the world and to experience the characters and the narrative and everything else. So different than what you would have said we would have had between Destiny 1 and Destiny 2. It's a lot more different. Anyway, I know that lots of people have not played Fallout 76 because of technical issues and because they don't like the idea of that game being a multiplayer. But, I think it's not a good idea to be avoiding it. You want to be fully involved, and you want to be seeing the things as they are within the new concept, because obviously they'll release additional content that will be part and parcel. I think Bethesda did take a decision similar to Bungie. They want to be developing this up to a certain point with VR. Really, we are getting a lot more interest. This is going to be everlasting, or, well, people are getting cold feet. We need to really bail and do something else as we go along. So we've heard a bit from ZeniMax. They talked about the new expansion coming to Elder Scrolls that is coming up next week. Again, the two chaps there from the development team indicated you are welcome at any time. You do not have to be a gamer. Played Oblivion and Skyrim, or indeed Morrowind. You can just walk in and join forces with other guys there. I think Elder Scrolls Online is one of the most approachable, the most friendly games I've ever come across, because I actually tested it. It wasn't really on release within its first year, and any time I walked the plains, there was at least half a dozen people who wanted to talk to me. They wanted me to join them with a quest, the exploration, or anything else. It was just really great, and it's very easy to approach, because you see somebody, you just click on your controller button, and you got window popping up saying send them a request to join you, and then you can talk, you can walk, you can explore, and you can do everything else. And you will know from my discussions here that I was really in two minds whether to align my channel with Destiny or Elder Scrolls Online, and I've gone for Destiny, which turned out to be a very, very good choice. But Elder Scrolls was definitely the other one that I felt was as friendly, as amicable, as supportive, and also having a very, very large community of gamers, because don't forget, Elder Scrolls has been around for, 25 years or so, and people had been playing all the games over the years, the vast majority of those dedicated hardcore fans, and they're very excited to see what is coming their way within that Elder Scrolls Online universe. Phasmophobia is coming to Xbox Series X, and it looked like like the old style point and click, when you're exploring certain areas, and lots of sort of dark corners, rooms, and everything, and so definitely Amnesia is another game that came to Xbox recently, one of the new installments of the series, and it just gave me that sort of flavor. So people who are into the dark old house, wants to find out what's hiding behind, semi-open doors, well, that's going to be your jazz. So that will be out. It will be cross-platform, coming out in August. Then Capcom told us about PvE Savage Gauntlet and Exosuit variants, and they are going to be coming out in Exoprimal. So quite interested to see what Exoprimal is going to give us. And we've seen that also they're making a combo of Exoprimal and Street Fighter. So it'll be interesting to see how, Street Fighter and Exoprimal combo is a bit like Monster Hunting World, for my liking. It's just a merge of the two. But we'll see. I think some people are excited about it, and Exoprimal is a game with lots of dinosaurs and the sort of Jurassic Park style ancient world. Be plenty to do, and plenty of monsters, and typical sort of Japanese game style, with a lot of action, lots of battles, and at the end everyone lives. So Sarah Bond also talked about the ID and independent developers that was getting people to try out these games. We've seen that certain games and certain developers have benefited tremendously, and they had huge exposure. They could have not, they might have not been making huge amounts of revenue on a specific title that just entered the platform, but in due course, publicity, the quality of the game, and the quality of the other producers, is just literally the very best that they can offer within the platform, and therefore they'll be attracting, many new viewers and gamers to explore the future titles as well. So that itself is of huge benefit, in addition to the publicity and the number of people just checking it out on cloud and downloading. Don't forget, the indie games are not as massive. They can be also slotted. You're having a short break from your Fallouts and Mass Effects of this world, and they're ideal for that degree of respite. And very interesting gameplay, great stories and great activities, and many different things that you can do with quite a variety of those titles. And most highly recommend to everyone to check them out once weekly, because you have, sometimes in a week you get half dozen titles or even more coming into Game Pass, but every single Friday, let's say, when you watch your This Week on Xbox, for instance, or listen to your Xbox podcast, broadcasts, these sort of programs are not really, obviously tied into Xbox, but they're very good as a guide to everything that's happening in the gaming industry. If you want to be really knowledgeable, you don't have to be the Xbox, right? It's slightly misleading. There's Xbox, what's new on Xbox, This Week on Xbox, but obviously many of these games are released as cross-platform titles, so they're released on other platforms, as is the case today, and you can learn a lot about the gaming industry, and obviously people running those broadcasts are very experienced, they're very funny, and they're provided with a wealth of information on everything that's happening in the industry. So absolutely a must. So on Friday, if you're watching those or listening to the podcast, you can just check out what's new on the Game Pass, and there are going to be some of these indie games, indie titles there, so you can obviously try them, play them for maybe half hour, find out for yourself, and then ping some messages to the developer, or ping some messages to Reddit to indicate that you enjoyed these games, or whatever experiences there were. If you do not enjoy, I would appreciate if you would just ping that to the developer, because the bad news travel fast, and it doesn't mean if you dislike something. Like, for instance, there was one person on the panel yesterday of IGN who didn't like the whole festival. They thought it was all lame. Like, really, she criticized every single game that was seen as the highlight of the whole event. Star Wars Outlaws, and then Assassin's Creed, and then Starfield, and she just had so many negative things to say about every one of these. And I thought, hang on a minute, what's the point of you coming here and creating that degree? I don't want that. If you are so unhappy, well, can you keep some of those thoughts to yourself? Because your comments are just completely irrelevant. Anyone watching those presentations will tell she must have been on a different planet. She's got some sort of serious problem when it comes to these companies, or she is just trying to spread the word of some degree of negativity, which is really not what we are here to see. So it was very disappointing really to see this. You can say that everyone is indeed entitled to their opinion, but being a participant in a forum which is in the know, IGN are one of the biggest firms doing the reviews and news on the industry, and trailing the actual presentation and telling the world, you've got millions of people watching this, your own impressions. It just seemed to me, I've got to say, if you want to draw attention to yourself, you do something of that sort, because everyone else is like really excited and you think, oh, this just doesn't excite me, it's just no good at all. Well, you're obviously purposely going against the grain. How can you not be excited about Starfield, or Star Wars Outlaws, or Assassin's Creed Mirage, or all the other titles we've seen? I mean, it's the best possible presentations you can imagine. I mean, anyway, I would just be surprised. Right. So we have the new expansion for Microsoft Flight Simulator. We've heard about that obviously during the presentation on Sunday. Very excited about this, and if you've not played the simulator, you've got to do it. It's an amazing game. Then Go Mecha Ball has been revealed, be released in 2024. Lies of Peas, that's very interesting. Our friend Sandman yesterday told me that he was indeed playing the game, and just bear with me, I'm checking out something else in addition. What's happening? Not connecting. That's weird. What I would say was the game that really grabbed me, I was really interested in, was Lies of P. And Lies of P did give us a very good trailer. We had some ideas on what the game's going to be about on Sunday, and was it on Friday? On Friday, I think it was. And the demo is accessible. You can actually try it straight away, or you can preload. I can't now remember. Yeah, I preloaded it. That's true. But our friend told me that he is really excited about the game, and he will be. So it's really great to see that our community members are both comments and views here, as well as engaging with these major showcase events and discovering for themselves the games that are, I guess, they're not obscure, the games that were not really well publicized in the past, but actually turned out to be proper discoveries, like Clockwork Revolution. I think Lies of P, a Clockwork Revolution, probably the biggest discoveries for anyone who's watched the showcase, because of the obvious, we were not expecting these games, and they come across as very interesting and very intriguing. Lies of P is bringing us back to the old France, and it's very much like a period piece. It looks like a well-developed RPG with lots of subplots and activities, whilst what was the other game I mentioned now? Yeah, Clockwork Revolution reminds us of Bioshock, whether intentionally or not is obviously a topic for some discussion elsewhere, but it's just very, very appealing, beautifully designed, and looks like a very exciting shooter, and with elements of RPG, with the elements of RPG. So we'll see. Then we have Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, Lightyear, and also we've seen that Phil Spencer played 33 Immortals, and that's the game created by the Spiritfarer developers. And Spiritfarer was a very touchy-feely family type of game, very emotional, very a kind of game you play and in there, lots of good friendships created. Whilst 33 Immortals is a game in which you have people fighting. So it looked like slightly Diablo style, there's like a bird perspective and lots of characters fighting it out, and not sure what the elements of strategy are in there, but anyway, we'll find out a lot more about the game as we go along. It's been introduced, and you could say Phil Spencer was very, very excited and indeed recommending it to everyone and playing it together live with some other guys. So these are the news related to the yesterday's presentation. A lot to digest. As I said, just a minute, what is going on here? I'm not getting my chat. I apologize. My chat had disappeared suddenly. Don't know why. No idea what's causing it. Oh yeah, we got it now. And what I tried to say is, to summarize, I think Summer Games Festival has been very good. It provided us with lots of different trailers, plenty of information, all that is to follow. Probably one of the busiest in a long while, all considering. We've had, first of all, the absence of some of these events during the pandemic. Then secondly, the studios were not working in full on their projects. And I think what we are seeing at the moment is that some of these projects are indeed coming to the fore, and they're getting released. They're sort of seeing the light of day. And I think we'll see many more of these in the months to follow. So many titles to be excited about. I thought that the overall event, for me, was even better than what we've seen with E3, because E3 was an on-site convention with lots of different panel discussions, plenaries, and participants coming in. In here, it was run in a way which I believe is very much kind of consumer/gamer oriented. So anyone watching would have been really excited about the titles, and then had the means to which they can communicate by Twitter and Reddit to developers. And then with the sort of post-show conferences or showcase events, whatever they call them, the extended bits, there was this opportunity to look at the community response, and they talked about various things that they read on Twitter and Reddit, and they were sort of connecting with the community. So I thought it was very interactive and definitely giving us the very best possible outlook on what is to follow. And I can just say I have no idea where we are all going to be able to find enough time to play all these games, because there are so many games that are coming out, and as you could see, the tech's developing, the new concepts are forming. We have the emergence of new companies. We've got the oldies trying to excel with so many different titles. It's just incredible. And on the other hand, what I really appreciate is the instant access. We'd not had that in the past. In the past, you'd have to buy a game in order to find out what the game was like. And today, you're literally spoiled for choice. You can just simply access either Game Pass or PlayStation Now, and what's called out PlayStation Plus, and you can try these titles. And obviously, if you like them, you can purchase them on a discounted price, or if not, you just carry on playing them on the streaming service as long as they are obviously residing there. And so that instant access is really helping. It's helping not just myself in terms of being able to check out what the game's like, but also very much in terms of attracting very many different gamers worldwide to this arena, and making it easy to, I guess, to be kept abreast with all the novelties in the industry. You are in position to learn about every single project that is being developed by these companies so easily, so early, with betas and alphas offered, with demos, with streaming services accessible on some of the titles once the games are released, like day one releases. That's incredible. Day one, you don't have to pay anything but a subscription. You can play the game. And obviously, certain titles like Diablo are not going to be released, or Rockstar titles, through the Game Pass services. But that depends on the company. It depends on what position they take in the long run. Whether they'll see, you see, for instance, with Bungie, they've had a sort of an equation with Microsoft for about a year, and then after that year, they just had cold feet. They just pulled out and went to Sony, and that's always an option for these companies. They can always decide on whether the presence is beneficial or not. I mean, it pained me quite a bit to see that Bungie departed, because that meant the full content of Destiny, which I was playing on the Game Pass, disappeared overnight, and then I had to purchase everything if I wanted to do it on the Xbox. So, you know, definitely this is what does happen sometimes. And you see this Bungie keeps doing this to me. I really hate that. It should never happen, because when you have overlays, when you're importing the game through Lightstream, it tells Bungie, you know, to the service, that you're active. You're not just wasting time, and they keep doing it all the time. Anyway, coming back to what I said is, yeah, we got the benefit of being able to access all the titles, and that really just enhances the knowledge. It increases the overall participation, and you've seen that the games which are released for free, like for instance Warzone and Apex, they made billions of pounds within each year, purely through sales of cosmetics and various add-on rewards packs, or, you know, whatever is offered as an option. And I think the future of the industry will be exactly in that niche area where you're offering these options, you know. I think Bungie will have a serious problem with this, because they're trying to monetize every single bit of Destiny, and it's been really not perceived very positively by many fans and followers. And they also feel, well, the fans, that Bungie had been sort of tightening the screws in terms of pricing strategies and offering many more things that require that sort of purchase. Like for instance the 30th anniversary pack. I thought it was completely wrong for that to be sold as a $75 or so, right? It was, you know, very high price for what it was, and I think it should have been just offered as the items, not just the sum, all of them you can grind and get through the game, which is the case in some other games. You know, I mean, obviously in Apex there are certain outfits that you're not going to be able to get, because, you know, there are many outfits, and there are only that many matches, and the loot is just as it is, you know. But on the other hand, there is a big difference. Apex is offered free of charge, full stop. You know, you don't have expansions which you pay for. You don't have add-ons which you pay for. You don't have, you know, special packs you pay for. All these things that Destiny charges you for. So I think they'll have to very seriously reconsider the pricing strategies, because the games doing it the Respawn way are benefiting tremendously. I'm not saying that that's applicable to every game, but you need to consider what community will bring in, and how the, you know, ecosystem will actually work for that title and for that company. Offering the options is very important, and I think what we have now with the streaming services is exactly that. It's offering us this multitude of options, and we can take our pick and decide what we want to be doing. And I really agree with some of the Xbox executives who indicated that basically they observed, it's the empirical fact, right? Statistics indicated that lots of people who tried out certain games that indeed were not particularly well publicized, after trying them, purchased the title, you know, because they knew that the title was not going to stay there for too long, and they really liked it, and the games are not too expensive. Whether it works for the heavyweights is a separate matter. It's hard to tell, but then the heavyweights are bringing in, you know, large numbers of people, and those people could be purchasing other things through the company. So Microsoft is not bothered, because they'll be buying the services and the products to one central fund, which is very different to a company like Bungie, for instance, if they are not part of that sort of umbrella group like what Microsoft is presently running as the Gamebox Studios. Anyway, I'm just telling you a bit about these novelties. It's my reflections on what's happening in the gaming industry, and let me think whether we had some messages coming in. That's all. But really, that's the news for today. Because if you were to be looking at the news on my Twitter, it's all about the Summer Game Fest, and we've been oversaturated with information. We've been given a feast of trailers and developer introductions, so it will take us at least a couple of weeks to digest all of this. It's interesting because I watched several live online reviews on YouTube as Digital Foundry, Games Radar and IGN, and all of them said it was very hard to remember some of the trailers of certain titles because there was so much information. Obviously, having half dozen panelists, people will gather their thoughts and somebody will remember the game that the other one had not noticed properly, or just managed to forget, and it was all very, very compatible. But it's just the sheer quantity. And I think the companies like Capcom, obviously they didn't have that many titles on offer, but still they were more sort of streamlining a few of their products and making sure that you actually get to know a lot more about each one of them. Whilst with Xbox there were so many titles that it's very hard to digest everything that was actually given. And I thought it was a very, very good festival, a very, very very good event for anyone who's interested in video gaming, and I just want to thank Jeff Keighley and his team for providing it and for working so hard in order to ensure that everything worked like a Swiss cuckoo clock, as they say, and that everything was absolutely perfect. I couldn't see any mishaps, glitches or technical problems, and loved the vast majority of the titles and everything that's been selected. It's like a proper introduction, and also what's important, it's not forcing us to buy anything, It's out there, like a proper showcase. It's all out there. Go to your local market, you pick and choose whatever you like. That's what I like as well, because in the past, I think with E3, I thought they were really pushing for certain sales with certain games or certain developers. There was no feeling of that sort at all. I mean, every game was trying to attract as many participants and as many viewers and gamers as possible, and all seemed like really fair and square in terms of the mutual competition. Whether you're going to buy Starfield or you play it on the Game Pass Day 1, or whether you will be resorting to some indie games, is down to yourself, and I really like that. So thanks, Jeff. Thanks to your team. It's been greatly appreciated, really cherished, loved and treasured. And we are now looking forward to the next big event, which is in December, the Video Game Awards, and all that Jeff and his team are going to obviously bring us. Let's have a look at some of the questions from our community, and then we will progress with gameplay. Today we'll be doing a mixed gameplay, so that will be a bit of Destiny 1 and a bit of Destiny 2. The reason for that is today's Wednesday, and for all of you who are Destiny veterans and gamers, you know that on Tuesday night we get the major reset. We get new content, weekly story missions, and the elements of the season that will indeed come our way every Tuesday night, and I usually play the content on Wednesday, so we'll do it every single Wednesday. We'll be hopping into the world of Destiny 2, the universe as big as it is, in order to discover whatever Bungie had given us. And so far so good. 3 weeks of that content, very, very interesting, and definitely pursuing a different direction. We're diving in fishing, and they're very proud to say that Cade will be coming back in the last installment, which will conclude this section or this part of Destiny Saga. So they had confirmed this week. I'm just quite curious to see what sort of shape or form he will have, and what sort of explanation they'll have as to why he was indeed being brought back. So that is going to be certainly something that will be exciting me a great deal as we progress towards February of next year. Right, so the questions that I've had, let me just have a look. I've got them written in here. There weren't that many yesterday. Yeah, there was a question in here about Twitch streams. Thank you very much for sending it. The question was, how do you become a Twitch streamer? So it was similar to what we talked about yesterday. If you remember, the question directed at me was about my streams and how I built my community. Well, how do you become a Twitch streamer? It's very easy. First of all, you've got to get yourself the equipment which is necessary. So it's console, so PC. You need to get a pen and paper, and you need to draw out a plan. The plan is about how you are going to be streaming and what you're going to be doing. Very important you build a plan from the day one, because the quality and the consistency and the speed through which you are going to be receiving responses and you'll be able to build a community is going to be based on your strategy. People who are disciplined, consistent, people who plan, people who have a clear idea of what they want to be achieving, are obviously always the most successful. It's no different from running a business or running any other major project like a series of studies or anything else elsewhere. When you make a plan, the first thing you need to look at is yourself. So you need to think of what you're like as a person, right? What kinds of things you like, what you don't like, and think how you're going to come across when you are engaging with the world, because don't forget, Twitch is instantly accessible, free of charge, anywhere around the world. Anybody, anywhere, can just click and watch and listen. So there's always an opportunity. You can attract very many people if your content is high and interesting, and obviously if it's properly connected with other communities, if it's properly promoted, and etc. But you need to think about yourself first. How are you going to come across? Are you going to be just as you always are? Or will you pretend? Will you just make up some sort of personality and then get it across? Neither of these two options are either right or wrong, because we've seen that some people, like for instance the well-known streamer Dr. Disrespect, he had created his alter ego, that character that he's streaming, and he's like an actor who is actually doing the active streams, which turned out to be very, very popular. He was a person involved with sports previously, and also quite a well-known personality in that industry. So he obviously merged the two, and he created this new character. So that's one option. But I think generally for small streamers, the best thing to do is to do something which is based on how you are. So if you are like very talkative, if you like jokes, your wife's creating certain memes, puns, in order to engage with people, well, this is what you can incorporate in your plan, and then you'll need to think how you are going to be doing this together whilst doing the stream, whilst you're choosing a particular title. And the choice of the title is very important. So it's how you are as a person, how you want to come across for those who are watching you or listening to you, as is the case here, and what game you will be presenting. So for a newbie, for a new streamer, I would say do not go for a variety stream. A variety stream will not get you many people to join your community immediately. Variety streams are suitable for people who have built the communities in a big fashion, and people who have already very many followers and viewers, and therefore having a regular game, which means you will base your stream on a particular game for most of the week, and then you'll switch to some other game on a weekend or sometimes for your evening streams, will actually retain that membership, and it will bring new people in there, purely because you will be streaming on a different category on Twitch, and you will have quite a few viewers who in any case are coming in because they want to talk to you, irrespective of the game. So the suggestion is carefully choose one game and then stream it frequently. So 3 to 4 times a week is the bare minimum. I'd say 5 times a week should be like a standard. If you are to be exploring what's the best way of doing it, you can basically liaise with some of the other streamers who kind of made it, or people who have that degree of longevity. And I have quite a selection of them here in my community. You can approach them. Dana D, for instance, Danus D, is a PUBG streamer. She's very well known worldwide, and she literally built her community out of nothing. It was the regularity, it was the precision, it was the discipline, it was the system that she was applying, her degree of interactivity with others, always streaming that game because of the ability to shoot and to eliminate opponents. And then generally she had spent all of the time on interacting with her community. So she'll have one person or 2 people who are playing together with her, so they'll be live on air communicating, similar to what we had here with our Destiny veterans. And then all the other people communicate through the chat. She always talk to them and connect with them, recognize them, and make it highly, highly interactive and greatly valuable. Also providing tips and tricks on how to become a competitive gamer in order to be as good as possible. She plays competitions. So, she had been streaming already for quite some time now. I think it's about more than 5 years, and managed to raise significant revenue. But it was all about the plan. It's all about the plan. This person is very disciplined. They basically wrote a plan on a paper, decided they want to present themselves exactly as they are and who they are, and master the game as they go along, engage with the community, and be consistent. And that's all there is. That's the foundation. That's the most important thing of all. the quality of your content and how you're interacting and what you're doing with others is critical. And the best thing to do is to probably single out one or two of the streamers you quite like, and you sort of learn from their approaches. You can even contact them directly and ask them about the tips and tricks, what they felt was helpful, what would work. And what's very important is that you do not get disheartened, because in this virtual space there are lots of ways to which one can create many followers, and the actual number of followers is fake, right? So you buy followers and the numbers just ascend overnight. Don't buy into this. That's completely wrong and completely insignificant. What you do want to do is you want to have initially a community of 10 people. 10, that's 10. But you want to have 10 people who come in every day to talk to you. So when you're streaming, there'll be like 10 people watching and talking to you, and you have good interaction flowing. Well, that is what's essential, because anybody popping in is not interested just in the game. They're interested in what you are talking about, because Twitch is all about communication. So that's very important. Don't think about large numbers. Think about the quality. Think about people who come in, connect with you, and provide you with high quality content themselves through those questions and discussions. And that itself is fundamental to the success of your channel. So from 10, you'll grow to 20, from 20 to 40, from 40 to 80, because coming in will see this is a mature channel. It has a very wise, very interesting approach, and people talk about important things within the chat. They talk about things which are aligned either with the game or other issues, and that builds the reputation. That becomes the signature of your channel, and that is very, very fundamental to the success in the long run. Even if you, for instance, streamed for a couple of years, you had that membership, you had those followers, and then you departed, you came back after another year for whatever reason, the same people come back straight away, and your community will stay with you forever. They become as close to you as your best friends that you have in the local community. They're obviously different, you don't know them in the real life, but they have a shared interest, which is what connects you with them. And they also have the memories of all the interesting conversations, chats. Like on this channel, we have many sessions where support was offered to people who are quite vulnerable, and that stays with those people for the rest of their lives. And the support is not just by myself, it's by all the other participants. So it could be support in terms of somebody's emotional difficulties, could be support in terms of how you learn to play the game, or wanting to complete some tasks, or asking for some advice. Somebody pursuing a new career, somebody looking for another place of residence, somebody considering whether they should pursue a line of study. So having a group of people involved in that decision making and making it regular, making it interactive, is critical, and that will give you a lot of joy, plenty of good experiences, and you are going to be able to connect with many of those people who then will treasure those memories for the rest of the days. So just to summarize, the first thing you need to do is you need to get the equipment. The equipment works. If you can get the fastest possible internet, that will help, because lots of younger viewers are very unhappy with the poor picture quality, which is caused by poor internet speeds, which is what I did have for almost 5 years here. And the quality of the content will attract many other people, but still the picture quality will be very equally important. So get the best possible internet if possible. Don't spend too much money on it, just get the best connection. Get your Xbox or PlayStation or PC, choose a game, and then draw a plan, and the plan is then crack on. Don't think that your first stream will need to be as polished as you would get it from Ninja or Shroud or any other major streamer. Don't think about that. Just do it. Pursue it. Build your community. You will, as you go along. If you worked in broadcasting, if you did presentations live, then you'll have some skills which you can utilize on. If you've never done it, it will take a bit of time to feel comfortable. I generally say that for the newbies, using a camera is not something I would advise, because you will become very self-conscious unless you are just a person who feels completely at ease with it. A lot of people will react to the way others perceive them on camera, and that itself could be a serious obstacle in feeling comfortable and relaxed when you're shooting. I'd say start out with the radio show, the podcast style, and then introduce the camera later. So you already have your community fully on board. You're not going to be bothered because they're all there, and then the new people come in. You'll be less sensitive to the comments. Anyway, that's just my suggestion. Might be completely wrong, may not be applicable to people who are youthful, look incredible, or want to be indeed engaging with, offering to their community members what their local environment is like people walk through the cities, or pop up set presents which are indeed in their streaming room, etc., etc. So it depends on the style, but I'm just thinking in general terms what will work the best for somebody who's never had anything to do with streaming, because remember, when you make that plan, when you write it on paper, the most important thing is how you are going to be interacting and what level of interaction you will have with all of your community members. That is critical. That is really most important, because I've seen people are not engaging with the chat or what other people say. Or for instance, you have Destiny game, I should say, and he has requests. People are saying on the chat, I would like to join you, and he's just completely ignoring this. He's doing like a one-man show. Well, that person will feel completely ignored unless being addressed. So the streamer can tell him, absolutely, I'll bring you in, but I can't bring you in today. My stream is about to finish, or we need to have at least one with a new person, or you need to subscribe to the channel rules. So as soon as you're responding, as soon as you're discussing things with someone, that is seen as obviously a huge asset, and it's helping the stream, it's helping that degree of communication. As I keep saying, Twitch and the streams on Twitch are one of the most powerful forms of communication that the humanity has ever seen. I think it's grossly underestimated still, but I did see very many good things take place live on air on Twitch channels. Things like charitable fundraising, what we are doing here today, and constantly here on the channel for the time to come. Things like helping and supporting people. I've seen some bigger streamers running a charity night, so they would single out one member in their community who is experiencing, for instance, huge financial problems. They'll ask everyone else to contribute, like with $1 or £1. Make sure that they actually have some money to pay for the basic necessities, and the community members did contribute. So just try to think about the power for the change that sort of approach has introduced. And nobody asked questions. They were just all tipping. Like a huge amount of money was coming in, and this person is completely unknown to all of them. But because of the streamer, who knows this person and who knows of the circumstances, they had that degree of trust. So it's all about communication at the end of the day. As I said, buy the equipment, get the fastest internet, decide on a game, and carefully choose it. Choose the game that's been around for a while, but the game that does have lots of followers and viewers. So Destiny is the obvious choice. Elder Scrolls Online, Fallout, any of the games that got that history. You stream the one that's not the latest. You stream the one that's been there before, because everybody who loves the game or loves the series, like for instance the Fallout series or Mass Effect series, will always come back to the streams to talk to other people who are doing it, who are watching it, who have gone through it, who are doing it for the first time, and you will have lots of people coming in. So that's the recipe. Once you got that paper out, once you've written a plan, stick to it. After a month or 6 weeks, look at the plan and decide on the parts which actually are good, that are workable, and decide on those which do not seem to be giving or paying you the dividends, right? Or the ones that work, say in plain English. So you have to be reviewing what's working, what isn't working, and you need to be adapting to obviously what your community wants, because your community members sometimes may well be wanting a variety stream. They may well be wanting, like for instance, I'll give an example, when these festivals take place, like the one I just described earlier, and you get demos and you get betas. Sometimes a streamer can get like privy to a beta if you sign up early, so have like closed beta, and you can stream it. You need to ask the developer whether he's allowing you to stream. You just ping a message and they give you the authority. And so your community members may want to be watching beta of some of these games because they're equally excited. So you become then the leader in the community who is, let's say, doing Elder Scrolls Online or Destiny streams in general, but at that time it's especially introducing this beta. So it's like whatever your channel introduces or presents. And again, it will be attracting some other people who are just simply interested in the new titles, and they want to see what beta's like. It's the decider. in terms of the interest of what they want to purchase the game. So you have to keep that degree of creativity. But remember, whatever you do, make sure you talk to your community members. On Twitter, you can run polls, ask community members what they agree with, what they disagree with, what they want, what they don't want, and everything you do needs to be aligned with that, because otherwise, obviously, pursuing your own agenda is not going to get you anywhere. That's this is a very interactive forum, and it's all about communication. And if the communication is absent, then the channel cannot be having that degree of longevity. I mean, it can be still sitting there on the edge, but the degree of communication which you see on other channels will then be absent. And I've got to tell you that people are very, very sensitive to what you say and how you approach certain kinds of topics. What people are most sensitive about is if you're not responding to what they're asking. So to their questions, concerns, or words of praise or whatever. They're very, very aware of the fact that you've not seen it and you kind of ignored it. Maybe you've not ignored it, maybe you didn't see it because there are too many messages coming in. But still, make sure that when you have a break in between different matches or gameplay, you read through all the messages there on the chat and you respond to every one of those people. It's absolutely essential. If you get a big community going, then definitely make sure you have a couple of moderators so answering the questions on your behalf according to your rules, whilst you are very busy gaming or doing something else live online. So it's extremely important to keep all of that in mind. But anyway, as a newbie, as a person starting out, just focus on what I had just described. So to summarize, number 1 is the equipment, number 2 is the fastest possible internet, then there is the choice of the game, number 4 is the plan which you build on, and then you crack on. Then it's practice and be yourself, and decide whether you want to have a camera or not, because if you feel the camera is enhancing your abilities, then absolutely. If you feel that it will be interfering with your anxiety levels, then definitely not. And it comes with practice and experience. All right, so I think that is a good description, and I thank our community member for sending us the question. I've got some of the questions here, but I'm aware of the fact that I'll be wrapping up the stream at 6 o'clock today, so we have like more than 3 hours of gameplay left, and I want to be combining the world of Destiny 1 with a sequel, because we got the new content that's obviously come to us yesterday, and just to see whether it has been properly updated. So we'll see this shortly, and we'll do a kind of a combo stream of these two worlds together. And I thank our community member for this question, also for your other comments. Thank you very much for that. This channel is supporting charitable causes, and I feel really a bit ashamed that I've not mentioned it, as this is the new of the channel. But I've got to tell you that Charity UK, the charity that I'm presently supporting, had been in extensive contacts with me, and I received every single day some messages from people who are involved with fundraising for the Mind, and they're very, very excited and very supportive of the fact that there is Destiny, one of the biggest games on the planet, supporting the cause. Some of our streams, and they were very grateful for the comments and views which were indeed coming from our community. They were very happy to see that people were becoming aware of the charity and the causes which we are supporting, and that is obviously saving lives. This charity is providing professional services for individuals and groups who are experiencing mental health problems, emotional difficulties, or anything which is linked to that. And it's sort of service which is fundamental to the well-being of many people in our community. And due to the way things are today, the profile of such charities had been somewhat diminished. We hear all the bad news, we hear all about the reality shows and influencers, but we hear very little about charities in the mainstream news. And I feel very strongly that we need to work harder to promote in order to support the members of our community who actually need to be helped the most. So very grateful to Mind for providing me with some presents and the rewards, which are going to be going to people who are financially contributing or supporting the charity in any other way. So keep it in mind. Keep it in mind that we are here purely in terms of supporting those people who need our help the most, and we are here to be promoting the charitable causes. And presently we are supporting the Mind UK, but in the future there are some other charities that we'll be supporting. I mentioned Shelter as being equally important. This is a charity in Britain that supports people who are threatened with homelessness or indeed have become homeless. It's very important in present day and age. Loads of people in Britain are having that threat hanging over them due to the way things are with the cost of living, and I have to say I'm completely ashamed to be fully aware of this, because I'd like that word homelessness to be eradicated from English language. You know, it's shameful that we got people who are actually placed in that situation, and we need to do something to help it, to remedy it, to prevent it, and to make sure it never ever happens to anyone. Because just think about it, everything you've got disappears and you end up on the street. I mean, think about that. It's absolutely dreadful. It ruins lives, and obviously that charity helps people who are facing that threat, or people who unfortunately had become homeless. And I think it's fundamental that we support them as much as we can in any way imaginable. Then we have Great Ormond Street Hospital, which is a research hospital providing services for very ill children, based in central London, Russell Square. Then we have Epilepsy Scotland, supporting people who suffer from epilepsy. Unfortunately, the National Society for Epilepsy is not on the list that we can support with Tiltify. So I'll write to them and I'll ask them to join forces with Tiltify, because it'd be absolutely important for them to be fully on board. Then we have National Autistic Society, and then again a charity that deals with families and individuals experiencing so-called autistic spectrum syndrome, and people who are affected by autism one way or the other. A very, very important charity, has been around for a long time, and indeed, as I said, very prominent and definitely very much worthy of our support on any level. And the last one is not based in the UK, it's in the US. It's called St. Jude Hospital, and again, similar to Great Ormond Street Hospital, this is a charity that works with seriously ill children. Many of those have incurable diseases, and Xbox were supporting their program for entertainment and social skills, and the therapies to which those children were being helped to socialize, not just within the hospital but with other people around the world. So they introduced the Xbox gaming facilities and accessibility controllers, and invested a huge revenue in the hospital and the charity in order to make everything possible for these kids who are suffering tremendously to spend time with other children from around the world, virtually online, without any cost attached, easily through Xbox and the controllers. And that's indeed something that really had astonished me. I watched a documentary on this and it was absolutely heartbreaking, and also so noble. Obviously Microsoft make a lot of revenue every single year, but the quantity of funds that have gone into the hospital, because don't forget, this is the American research hospital for children, and the research will be then shared with the rest of the world. So it means any advancements that are being created or discovered at the hospital will be spread out around the world, and all the other children from other hospitals worldwide will be enjoying the benefits. So it's extremely important. But I was really astonished by the degree of investment. If you have time, then just have a look and explore the documentary. You can get it through various Xbox forums, and I'll dig it up and post the link here and on my Instagram in the next few days. And that also was something that drew me to the whole capacity that we can have as streamers and gamers in order to initiate a social change, because I thought, hang on a minute, this is just quite extraordinary. And when I see these children who are suffering so tremendously and having so much fun, forgetting about the fact they're ill, and enjoying the time together with other kids around the world through various gaming forums, playing their favorite games, talking about ordinary things, meeting their school friends who are no longer with them due to the illness, it's just incredible. And it does tell you that this activity can be something else but just simply pastime. I think that's critical for people to understand. It's here for us to forget about our daily ills. It's here to give us an opportunity to relax. But as we've seen, some of that is still, well, I should say, some of that is connected to the old style gaming forums and the way things were years back. But with Twitch and YouTube and other forums which give us the opportunity for instant interaction live online with others, there are all these other opportunities arising. So it's like two separate things, but obviously both are compatible, and what we want here on the channel is for everything to be highly enjoyable and entertaining. We want people to be relaxing and talking about serious issues through laughter and entertainment and joy, rather than feeling under huge pressure and duress, which can be happening otherwise. So we've had here sessions supporting people who are suffering from isolation during the COVID pandemic. It was like an anti-COVID forum or whatever, COVID protection force forum, you name it as you like, and it was very successful. We had many people participating, and they still email me, they still send me messages even today thanking for the opportunity, because that saved their life. That really made them not alone, that made them sociable, made them forget about the fact that they couldn't go out at all day and night. That was before the vaccine was indeed created and distributed. And we've had also some people who suffer from COVID, albeit not with very severe symptoms, present live on air, playing Warzone and Destiny together with us, Apex as well. And it was a wonderful experience, one of the most rewarding experiences I've had in my whole life. Obviously I've worked with lots of ill people, and I had many other rewarding experiences, but this is quite extraordinary because it was global, happening at a time where the whole humanity was affected by this dreadful pandemic, where everyone was being affected one way or the other. Sadly, many people by the losses in their families, due to people who passed away, and it was just really getting our hearts and minds together, fighting off the fear. That was the basic thing, because all of us were frightened, not knowing where we can actually catch the virus. And having that opportunity here within those gaming forums open up the whole horizon of ideas for myself and others, that actually we can initiate a change. We can help. We can do something in addition to the regular enjoyment of gaming. So anyway, if you're watching and listening, or watching this on playback, keep this in mind, and keep it in mind that this channel is not aligned with charities, charitable causes, charitable fundraising, and everything which is linked to of goodness, providing something that will initiate the change in other people's lives. And as I said, by participating in our fundraising with Mind, you are becoming an active participant in saving lives. Because don't forget, people who work for Mind, their volunteers and their staff and professionals, they save lives every single minute of the day, right? So just conceptualize that. If you invest, if you raise the profile, if you donate, if you get involved, you are spreading the word, making sure that people from your community, people around you, your family, friends, associates, schoolmates, students, people who you know through various professional connections, become very aware of the fact that if somebody within their circle became seriously ill and was suffering from mental health problems or indeed emotional pressures, they can approach this charity, and they can do so free of charge. So remember that. Saving lives is not about the money. It's not about charging for their services. It's about doing something that will change somebody's life for the better. And that's critical. I think we're living in times where consumerism and investment are fairly predominant. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with consumerism or investment, but there's got to be enough space and time for the other side as well. And I think this is what we managed to retain in Britain. We're trying to really ensure that the other side does not buckle under the pressures of everyday ills and costs which are being caused by various. But as I said, we need to have the opportunity to have this other side as well, right? So it's not just the investment and money making and profit, or I should say competition. It's also about having services which are providing something that will give the benefit to those who actually need it the most. So anyway, I've talked a lot. I need to have a short break. I need to have a snack. I need to have something to drink. So I'll take a short break for a few minutes. And after that, we'll crack on with Destiny 1, and then we'll migrate to Destiny 2. So curious to see what Nightfall Strike we're given here. and what weekly story mission would have arrived to Destiny 1. We possibly played that story mission yesterday. I'm not sure whether the reset was completed by the time I ended my stream. Maybe, maybe not. I didn't feel that there was any reset during my stream, but anyway, we'll see. And then we'll see what the Bungie team had brought to us yesterday with the new story mission and the activities in the sequel. So have a cup of tea, have a biscuit, relax a bit, and I'll be back in 5 minutes.